So welcome to yet another session of UARC. Hope all are doing well and staying safe. As we all know, the exams are near. Keep revising and updating yourself and write as many mock tests as possible. We will also help you in this process. So in this lesson, we will look into the remaining principles of visual composition, which are contrast, proportion and unity. And in the end, we will follow it with certain examples.
So let's learn contrast. So by definition, contrast is nothing but the arrangement of opposites. Just remember the keywords, which is the arrangements of opposites. So what are these opposites? So these opposites can either be in terms of color, dark versus light. It can be in terms of texture, rough versus smooth, or it can be in terms of size, small versus large. So the idea to be understood here is, if you look at hierarchy, hope you are aware of this visual principle, hierarchy. In hierarchy, there are a large number of elements, right? You can revise it, and in that composition, one element would be standing out. It can either be in terms of its size or color or placement, right? Whereas in contrast, there will only be two. If there is one, suppose there is a light colored square here, there will be a dark colored. So it will be opposite in terms of its, so this will be in terms of its color. It can be texture. Imagine here is a glass on one side. Here imagine it is a brick. So here this is in terms of texture. Or it can be even in terms of size, a small square and a large square. So contrast is always used to create some kind of visual tension in a composition, right? So figure ground relationship is another important example of contrast. I think you will be aware of this particular diagram, a diagram of a vase, which can also be two faces. So this is created by creating a contrast, a visual contrast. So there is a lightness here and a darkness there. So this difference creates a contrast.
So let's look into the examples of contrast, first by color, by texture and by size. So look into these images and try to understand how they are contrasting and which is that element which is giving that sense of contrast. You can also note that the contrast by size sometimes can create a sense of hierarchy or dominance. And the contrast by texture example, sometimes, as in this case, it is also a contrast by color.
So next let's learn proportion. So proportion in any composition is nothing but the harmonious arrangement of elements. Is the harmonious arrangement of elements or forms to each other as well as to the whole. So what it means is that, suppose we have a figure or a field of view like this. Imagine we have a person here, right? And there is a house in the end. So we can see that because the person is nearer, his size was comparatively larger when you look at here. So this has a sense of scale and proportion. Whereas if the same field I am drawing the house, I am making it extremely larger, then it means that either he is nearby, right? So here it was far, here it was near. So this again has a sense of scale and proportion. But when does the composition go out of scale? Imagine you have, suppose I have a bed here, right? And imagine I am visually placing a bottle. So we know that normally a bottle should be smaller in size compared to a bed. But here there is a out of proportion situation. So in exam point of view, they might give a composition, say a particular building, and they might visually try to place a human being nearby it. So you have to say that here in this case there is no proportion, right?
So now let's look into the examples of proportion in a composition. First we look into the proportional composition and then into the out of proportion composition. So as you can see, the first image on the top of proportional composition, it is also an example of golden section or a divine proportion. And so try to explore the concept of golden section or divine proportion, and it is up to you to do that. And the human face is an example of proportional composition. Generally all elements of nature are examples of proportional composition. So whereas the out of proportion composition, as you can see in the example, it shows how the sizes are different. The human size of the human is small with respect to the water bottle, likewise. So it is basically to create a sense of some kind of meaning that the particular artist wants the audience to get conveyed, right?
So the final design principle that we are going to learn is unity. So unity is also referred to as harmony. So unity in any composition, either in a 2D or a 3D composition, is nothing but that design principle which gives the design a sense of completeness, right? So this completeness can be brought about in terms of various aspects of art or design. That is, it can be in terms of line or shape or form or space, etc. So most of the examples that we have seen earlier, it might have the element of unity. Also, a composition that has unity will always look pleasing to the eye. It will have a sense of proportion, balance, etc. That is, most of the earlier visual principles, when used in a complete form, creates a sense of unity. So any scenery or an element of nature, for example there are mountains, and a typical landscape is always an example of unity. If you take a composition, suppose I am creating a line composition, if I create rhythmic patterns in such a way that as a composite, as an individual element, it is nothing but a line, but if you look at the whole picture as a composition, you can see that there is a sense of unity, right, or harmony. So various artists have used unity as a theme. Artists have used unity as a theme in their pictures, So we will look into this by checking out all the examples. Only then we will understand unity as a whole.
So now let's look into the examples of unity or harmony. So unity or harmony can be used both in architecture as well as in art. So let's look into the examples of art. So the first image is the picture of falling waters by Eiffel, right? So it is an important example of organic architecture. So in this particular case, you will see that the site, the surroundings, the building form, texture, etc., everything, all these elements give it a sense of unity. The second image, which is also an example of repetition or rhythm, it is also an example of unity. And the Parthenon, which is the third figure, is also an example of unity or harmony. So all the examples that we have seen so far, uh, in many cases, especially in rhythm, etc., we can see that it is also an example of unity. Whereas in art, if you see, the first image is a painting of Picasso, which is an example of cubism. So if you look into the element of the particular painting, you would see that it is not having the sense of harmony, but as a picture, as a whole, if you look at it, you would see that the composition is having a sense of harmony. Same is the case with the other two paintings, the Ravi Verma painting and the Scream painting, which is a very famous painting by Edward Munch, right?
We have come to the end of the video. Connect with us in YouTube. We keep uploading lots of mock tests and other study materials in the upcoming days. So if you have any questions or doubts, just pop them in the comment section below. We will definitely revert you back. So consider subscribing our channel so that you'll be notified when we upload the videos.